Hello, learners of mathematics. Welcome to session 5 of Unit 1, Basic Concepts of Assessment in the course Assessment in Maths Education. I am your course instructor and my name is Munkaila Dasmani. In the previous section, we look at purpose of assessment and realize that we have the purpose of assessment were a number. There were a number of them. Some of them is to make guidance and counsel decisions, for certification, to inform teaching and learning, and then we also look at the uses of assessment, tertiary institutions and others. So in this session 5 or Unit 1, we are going to look at principles of assessment. So, learning objectives. By the end of this session, you should be able to state and explain some general principles of assessment. You should be able to discuss implications of these principles to mathematics instruction and learning. Principles of assessment. These general principles of assessment was from Brown 2005. So you can get a number of them when you go to internet or read some books. So the first one here is student-centered assessment. Student-centered assessment. The assessment process should be seen as forming an integral part of the learning process. As such, we can say that the assessment is student-centered. It should form an integral part of the learning process. For teaching and learning, it takes place and the focus is on students. So teachers, we are going to teach the students. So once the assessment is student-centered, then we say it's a principle of assessment. So as such, the needs of the students are at the heart of assessing our assessment process, such as deciding on what to assess, how to assess, and why of the assessment. So the next of the principle is assessment should provide evidence of students' achievement. Assessment should provide enough evidence for student achievement. Your major role as a teacher is to facilitate students' learning, and one way of supporting students' learning is through assessment. As a teacher of mathematics, you should be able to assess students in ways that enable you to know how well they are performing related to the profile dimensions stated in the syllabus. Oh, okay, there's an A in here, profile dimension. You talk about that, and I know by the end of this course, you get to know what is the meaning of profile dimension by the end of the course, not the session. So doing this will require that you broaden your method of assessment to include alternative forms of assessment, so that you can gather a wide range of evidence about what students know and can do. So now I've also mentioned another alien there, alternative form of assessment. By the end of the course, you'll be meeting all these kinds. So you can Google and read what does it mean, and I know you know it. So the next of the principle of assessment is the assessment should be validity. Assessment should be valid. So the validity, we'll be looking at this critically in the subsequent lessons. So if you conduct assessment and the assessment is not valid, then it is not a principle of assessment. So the assessment needs to focus on what is intended to learn or to be learned. It should be focused on what is intended to be learned. With that instance, we can say that assessment is valid, and that's according to Brown 2005, page 82. Assessment should be valid as one of the principles of assessment. So as a teacher, your assessment method should be oriented towards the score or knowledge that students are expected to acquire and be able to demonstrate during the lesson or at the end of institution or instructions. Once you're able to achieve this one, then we can say that that assessment is valid. Okay, so the next one is any assessment strategy selected should be efficient any assessment strategy selected should be efficient. So you must think about issues such as time, costs, and capacity when selecting an assessment method. It should be cost effectiveness, efficient. The task should be such that students can find it manageable, relevant, and supportive for their learning trajectory. You want to conduct assessment and you give them a project, and you know that students actually are not working, and that requires a huge sum of money. How can these students overcome that project? They don't have money to do. So you should make sure that assessment strategy should be cost efficient or cost effectiveness. Also time. They are not learning only mathematics, they are learning other courses as well. So when you're giving them a task, you should also consider that. You give them the whole 3 days, 1 week task. Students should go and do what about other courses they are doing. So you should be putting those things into consideration when you are giving assessment to your student. So it's one of the principles of assessment. This is very interesting. Another one is the point 5 is assessment should be transparent. It should be transparent. You need the criteria for evaluating student work should be explicit and communicated to all involved. You need to be clear what type of work or response receives a perfect score, what work will receive a low score, and so on. Don't communicate to students. Maybe you know 1 or 2 students from your home, your brother, your sister, your siblings. Then you give them the question, you tell them different thing from the entire class. So as such, there's a need for you to integrate assessment into your teaching so that it happens regularly and inform the teaching and learning process. Now, technology should also be used where appropriate. So you should be transparent enough. You can also use technology when you want to conduct assessment. Tell the student, all of them, number 1 is 10 marks. When you get a correct score, when you get the correct one, you get 5 marks. A answers 3 marks. Let the student know so that when they are doing the assessment, you know where they put in huge marks there for them to know. Okay, point 6 of the principles of assessment. Any assessment strategy should be inclusive. Any assessment strategy should be inclusive. This means that you should use a variety of assessment techniques, being traditional or alternative forms of assessment, so that the diverse ways students learn and demonstrate their learning styles are elicited. So here, all students need to be provided an equivalent opportunity to demonstrate what they have learned. So it should be inclusive. You don't say this student is sharp, so you like them, the sharp students than those who cannot learn fast. Some are slow learners. Some write very fast. Some too are slow writers. So when you are conducting assessment, you should put all these things into consideration. However, you should keep in mind that not all students are good in taking a test. So if you think some students cannot take a test, for instance here, the use of tests which focuses on record of facts provides advantage to students who are good in a recall of facts, while disadvantage to those who cannot demonstrate their learning skill through problem solving. So I can do problem solving, somebody can do record of facts, and you've centered your assessment in only record of facts, meaning that those students are going to benefit at the expense of other students. So it should be inclusive. You see your student learning styles, you can make sure to include all aspects of students' ability in the class in your assessment. Okay, the next one, point 7, is that the assessment principle, the assessment strategy choosing should be reliable. If you talk about validity, now I'm also talking about reliable. These two will be dealt with in the subsequent section. When do we say assessment should be reliable? Why do we say that? So that is, assessment should yield the same result when taken at different times by the same group of students. So we talk more in week 2 for the reliability and the validity. So the assessment should yield the same result when taken at different times by the same group of students. You took the assessments this month, 2020, the student was able to score 90, 80. So in the next year, when I conduct that same assessment, we expect that the students should be able to score the same thing. Then we can say that that assessment is reliable. Another way is that when I do the assessment either in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon, any time of the day, that student should be able to score the same thing. Then the assessment is reliable, provided that illness are exempted from this statement. Okay, so we come to the end of the section, and in this section we look at the principles of assessment, and we said that the principles include: it should focus on how students learn, it should be valid and reliable, it should be fair and ethical, it should incorporate technology where appropriate. So technology is very important. Or you think there's an appropriateness, make sure you incorporate technology in your assessment. The assessment strategies must match learning objectives. You can't teach quadratic equation and then you want to assess your student, you go and assess them in let's say angles. It's not matching. What you've taught them, make sure you assess them based on that. Strategies must serve the needs of the learners. And then assessment should use multiple methods so that all are included. Don't go and use only one method that will benefit include those students you like them in the class or you think they know that. So it should be all included, and that is choose multiple method. Now your assignment is that assessment is a means to an end. How will you explain this one? So write them down.